really appreciate a designated hand towel in my kitchen, but I couldn't find something that matched my aesthetic, so I decided to make the pretty towel pattern. And this is the tutorial. You can get this pattern at lydianaomi.com or lydianaomi.etsy.com. Yes, seam allowance is included in the pattern, and it's 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters unless otherwise mentioned. The pretty towel has 3 different styles. We'll start with my favorite, the ruffled style A. You'll need 2 of the towel piece 1A. You'll also need the strap piece 3AB, 2 in main and 2 in fusible interfacing, and cut 3 of the ruffle piece 2A. Apply fusible interfacing to the wrong sides of the straps. I always like to use a press cloth to keep my iron from getting sticky. Choose one of the 3 ruffle pieces to become the center piece, then fold it in half to find the center and mark both sides with a shallow notch. Place each remaining piece at a right angle to each end of the center ruffle piece. And this is important. Sew from the inner corner at the top to the outer corner. This is just like if we are making bias tape. Next, trim the seam allowance down to 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters, then press open. The result is a continuous strip of fabric that will make up the ruffle. On the wrong side of the ruffle, the side with the seams facing you, fold in one long edge at 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters twice. I find it easy to just fold up 1/4 inch with the iron and then fold again as I go at the machine, but I'm also demonstrating here how you can just fold that second fold and press it the whole way. Then you're going to sew close to the inner fold. Fold each end of the strip to the center to mark the midway notches on the unfinished side of the ruffle piece. This will make it so much easier to gather evenly along the curve of the towel piece and also match to the notches on the towel piece. Sew a double row of basting stitches along the long unfinished edge of the ruffle piece. And for easier gathering, you can stop and restart the stitches, leaving tails for gathering at each notch or even just at the center notch. And when you're sewing, don't let it bunch up like I did here. I did correct that. But notice that I'm stopping at the first notch and leaving a tail. Then I'm going to sew the other stitch about 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters away from the first stitch and stop in the same area. Then I'm going to restart the stitch where I left off at the notch and do another pair of stitches until I've done all 4 sections. As I said, this makes it so much easier to gather, but you can also just do one long go of basting stitches or break it up into just 2 if you want. Take one of the towel pieces and with right sides together, pin the raw basted edge of the ruffle strip to the rounded edge of the towel piece, matching each notch and lining up the ends at the top edges. Then pull up the stitches to gather in each area so that the strip becomes a ruffle and matches the length of each segment. And then you can just pin it all in place, ensuring that the ruffles are even. then sew together. After which you can remove the basting stitches just to keep everything neat. Place the other piece right sides together to the towel ruffle construction so that the ruffle is now enclosed. Sew along the rounded edge, leaving the top open. And just take it slow. Make sure you line everything up right. Next, you can trim the ruffle seam allowance just to reduce some bulk. Then turn out and press around the edges, being careful not to press the ruffles, as they just don't look as nice when they're flattened. Now we're coming to the pleats, and I just want to make a note that you need to make sure that you're pleating both layers of the towel together. So place the towel right side up. You know the right side by looking at the ruffle, as the folded edge is on the wrong side. Locate the center notches along the top straight edge of the towel and align these center notches. Locate the notches directly to the right and left, and then fold and pin them so that they line up behind the center notch, creating a box pleat. So I'm just folding the right side first, and you'll notice that the fold we create lines up with the next notch. Make sure you securely pin. I like to use a pin for each side of the fold so that everything just stays in place. So I've only done one side of the center box pleat, so the other side folds in the opposite direction in the exact same fold pattern. And there we have our center box pleat. This side of the box pleat folds outward, and when you look at the back, the folds actually fold inward. So now I'm working to the right. I'm folding the next notch behind the notch that lines up with the fold of the previous pleat. This creates what is called a knife pleat. And then you just continue doing the exact same thing until you've completed the one side. Then you're going to repeat in a mirrored fashion on the left side. Don't be afraid to use as many pins as needed. It's important to have all the layers lined up perfectly at the top for the best pleat results. Once you've finished and you turn it over, you'll notice that the back side of the pleat is actually opposite to the front side. The pleats are all done, so now sew across the pleats just at 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters. This stitch is just to keep everything in place before we sew it into the strap, so we're not doing the full 1/2 inch seam allowance. On one of the straps, fold in the bottom straight edge 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters. This strap piece will be on the back side of our finished towel. Place the straps right sides together and sew along the curves, leaving the straight edge open. Trim the seam allowance down to about 1/4 inch. I find that pinking shears can really come in handy for trimming, especially around the curves. Then snip to the corners on either side and turn out the strap. Then you can finish it off with a nice press. Locate the front of the towel construction. Remember, it's the side with the box pleat folded outward rather than inward. And place the folded edge of the strap right sides together to the top pleated edge of the towel. Aligning the width of the towel with the width of the strap by matching the center notch and the sides. Pin in place and then sew only through the one strap layer at that 1/2 inch or 13mm seam allowance. Then fold this seam allowance towards the strap and align the fold at the back of the strap piece just over the seam and pin in place on the right side of the towel. And then we're going to top stitch around the whole strap close to the edge, starting across the straight edge to catch the fold in the back. The good side of the buttonhole is going to be sewn on the back of the construction, so make sure the back is facing up when sewing it. The button size for this pattern is a 3/4 inch or 19mm wide button, but you can use any size. Just make sure the buttonhole is about 1/8 or 3mm bigger than the button. I had the perfect pink button that was about a 1/2 inch or less, so I just adjusted the hole size from the end, very important, to keep it in the right location. Then you can sew the buttonhole at the marked location and carefully cut open that hole. Next, sew the button at the marked location on the right side of the strap. Once buttoned, style A should look like this. And before we move on with style B and C, I want to remind you to share your make with me on your socials using the hashtag #PrettyTowel and tagging me at Lydia Naomi Studio so that I can see and share it with the rest of my followers. For style B, we want towel 1B and strap 3AB, and that strap needs to also be fused. The steps are really simple. Start by placing the towel right sides together. I didn't have enough of the gingham linen, so I backed it with some vintage linen that I had. Sew around the curved area, leaving the notched area open. Once that is sewn up at our usual 1/2 inch or 13mm seam allowance, you can trim it down to about 1/4 inch or 6mm. Then turn out and press. Next, we will pleat the top 2 layers together. So find the 3 center notches, and on each side of the middle notch, fold the adjacent notch to the back. And it should look like this. Then you continue to the right, folding the next notch behind the previous notch. Once the right side's done, you can work on the left side, pinning everything in place carefully. For a more in-depth explanation, see the pleat chapter for style A. Sew across the top at a 1/4 inch or 6mm to keep it all in place for when we attach it to the strap. Now take your strap pieces and fold up one straight edge, 1/2 inch or 13mm. Place right sides together and sew around the curves, leaving the straight edge open. Then you can trim down the seam allowance. I love using pinking shears. They really help create clean curves. I also snip to the corners and then turn out. And of course, press it. Place the unfolded side of the strap right side together to the pleated edge of the towel, matching the center notch and the sides, and pin in place. I kind of had to squish it in just a little bit since my pleating was a bit loose on the one side. And it worked out fine. So if that happens to you, you just kind of ease it in, then sew together at 1/2 inch or 13mm. At the back, push the seam allowance up into the fold of the strap, covering the stitching with that strap fold, and pin from the right side. Then you can sew around the entire perimeter of the strap close to the edge, being sure to catch the fold at the back. On the wrong side of the strap, sew your buttonhole where marked. This is the side that will show, so you want the nicest side of the buttonhole showing, and the nicest side is always the side where the needle is going into your fabric. Then sew on your button on the right side where marked, and you are done style B. For style C, you want towel 1C and strap 3C, but also note that any strap can be used with any towel style. Start by placing the towels right sides together. Sew around the rectangle, leaving the notched area open. Once that is sewn up at our usual 1/2 inch or 13mm, you can trim the corners. Then turn out and press. Then you can do a nice top stitch about a 1/4 inch or 6mm from the edge around the perimeter. Next, we will pleat the top 2 layers together. Find the 3 center notches, and on each side of the middle notch, fold the adjacent notch to the back. And when you're done, it should look like this. Then continue to the right, folding the next notch behind the previous notch. Then finish the left side, pinning everything in place carefully. For a more in-depth explanation, see the pleat chapter for style A. Next, we can sew across the top at only a 1/4 inch or 6mm to keep it all in place for when we sew it to the strap. Take your strap pieces and fold up one straight edge 1/2 inch or 13mm and place right sides together. Then sew around the shape, leaving the straight edge with the fold open. Trim down the seam allowance to about a 1/4 inch. I love to switch to the pinking shears at the curve as it really helps create a clean curve. And then turn it out and, of course, press it. Place the unfolded side of the strap right sides together to the pleated edge of the towel, and matching the center notch and sides, pin in place. Once that's done, you're going to push the seam allowance up into the back and fold the strap down over it to cover the stitching, and then pin from the right side. Then sew around the entire perimeter of the strap close to the edge, being sure to catch the fold at the back. On the wrong side of the strap, sew your buttonhole where marked. Then you're going to sew your button on the right side where marked, and you are done style C. If you like this pattern and want some more home projects, check out my romantic Heidi ruffle apron and my homestead chic Dawn apron patterns. Like this video and subscribe for more. Thanks so much for watching.